Hey everyone! Welcome to World News Update, where we bring you latest news, tech updates, travel adventures and more around the world. If you love being informed, you're in the right place. Don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. Also, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. The M23 conflict in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, is a complex and multifaceted war with hidden forces and international influences playing major roles. The M23, or March 23 movement, is a rebel group that emerged in the eastern region of the DRC, primarily composed of Tutsi fighters. The group's roots trace back to 2012 when they took up arms against the Congolese government, citing grievances over the treatment of the Tutsi community in the region. While the group's stated aim is to protect the Tutsi population in the DRC, the underlying causes of the conflict are deeply political and economically motivated. The ethnic and regional dynamics of the conflict are deeply intertwined with the history of the DRC and its neighbors. The Tutsi-Hutu conflict, rooted in the Rwandan genocide of 1994, spilled over into eastern DRC, with Rwanda involvement in the region dating back to when they hosted Congolese Tutsi refugees. Rwanda leadership, particularly President Paul Kagame, has long had an interest in the DRC, and this relationship has been critical to the ongoing conflict. Rwanda has been accused of supporting M23 through military aid, training, and even direct intervention, though it denies these allegations, claiming its actions are motivated by self-defense and the need to protect its borders from the threat of Hutu rebels operating in the DRC. Uganda, too, has been implicated in providing logistical support to M23, driven by its own regional interests in the DRC. At the core of the M23 conflict is the control of DRC's vast natural resources. The eastern DRC is rich in minerals such as coltan, gold, and tin, which are vital for global electronics and industrial sectors. These resources have long been a source of wealth, but also conflict, as different armed groups, including M23, fight for control of mining areas to fund their operations. Rebel groups and foreign companies have often exploited these resources, contributing to the continuation of the violence. The situation is further complicated by the involvement of international corporations that purchase these minerals from conflict zones, sometimes turning a blind eye to the human rights abuses fueling the conflict. The humanitarian impact of the M23 conflict has been devastating. Millions of people have been displaced by the fighting, with many fleeing to neighboring countries like Uganda and Rwanda. The Kivu region, a hotspot for the conflict, has seen entire communities forced to abandon their homes, seeking safety in overcrowded refugee camps. The human cost of the war is not only measured in the loss of life but also in the destruction of essential infrastructure. Health facilities, schools, and markets have been obliterated, making it nearly impossible for civilians to rebuild their lives in the midst of ongoing violence. Human rights violations, such as sexual violence, child soldier recruitment, and executions, have become commonplace in the conflict, with both the Congolese army and M23 rebels committing atrocities against the population. The international community has struggled to address the situation effectively. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in the DRC, MONUSCO, has been stationed in the country for years, yet the violence continues. Despite a large presence, MONUSCO has been criticized for its inability to prevent atrocities or disarm rebel groups like M23. The mission has faced logistical challenges, a lack of resources, and, in some cases, a limited mandate to engage in active combat against rebel forces. Diplomatic efforts have also failed to achieve lasting peace. Various peace agreements and ceasefire deals have been brokered, but M23 has repeatedly violated them. The involvement of neighboring countries, particularly Rwanda and Uganda, has made international intervention more difficult. These countries, while publicly calling for peace, have often been hesitant to hold each other accountable for their role in fueling the conflict. The economic motivations behind the war cannot be ignored. Eastern DRC's mineral wealth has attracted the attention of both local militias and international powers seeking to profit from it. Rebel groups, including M23, often control mining operations in the region, using the proceeds to fund their military campaigns. While these resources are critical for the global economy, they have become a source of constant violence and instability for the people of the DRC. This resource curse has left the country in a state of perpetual conflict, where local communities continue to suffer as international interests exploit the region's natural wealth. Large-scale illegal mining operations are often conducted under rebel control, making it difficult to stop the flow of resources that fund the violence. The role of the international community has been marked by both diplomatic efforts and a lack of meaningful action. The United Nations and other international bodies have condemned the violence and called for peace, but have been slow to intervene decisively. Regional organizations, such as the African Union and the East African Community, have made efforts to negotiate peace, but these initiatives have been undermined by political divisions and the involvement of powerful neighboring states. The reluctance of Western countries to confront Rwanda and Uganda, both of which have strategic and political ties to the West, has further complicated the situation. The international community's failure to hold these countries accountable has allowed the conflict to persist, despite the enormous human cost. As the war drags on, the prospects for peace seem increasingly bleak. The M23 continues to operate in the region, and the civilian population remains trapped in a cycle of violence. However, there are efforts from local activists and humanitarian organizations that are pushing for peace. These groups continue to raise awareness about the ongoing crisis and are working to provide assistance to the displaced. The challenges to achieving peace are immense, but there is hope that through regional cooperation, international pressure, and a genuine commitment to ending the violence, a lasting solution can be found. In conclusion, the M23 conflict is a tragic and complex war driven by a combination of political, economic, and ethnic factors. While the M23 rebels have their own grievances, the conflict is largely fueled by the involvement of neighboring countries like Rwanda and Uganda, as well as international corporations that profit from the exploitation of DRC's resources. The war has devastated the lives of millions of Congolese, who continue to suffer from displacement, violence, and the loss of basic services. Without addressing the hidden forces that sustain the conflict, including foreign powers and economic interests, lasting peace remains elusive. The future of the DRC hinges on the ability of the international community to recognize the hidden hands behind the conflict and take meaningful action to bring an end to the violence.